Right. So here we are in the morning room. And this looks like you come in here often, right?
Oh,
this is like this is the private side, isn't
it? We do everything in here. I mean, we watch the telly in the evening, or we've got people staying. This is our gathering. There's no other big posh drawing room somewhere that we will use. This is it. With the fire lit. We like the fire even if it's quite hot outside because it's just such a focal part of the room.
It is. It's lovely. And it's so relaxed, and I feel like I'm in, I mean, I know where I am. I'm in,
Yes.
you know, I'm the American. To me, this is a castle. You know what I mean? It's
Right,
just,
okay,
it's just,
Yes.
But I mean, this is so homely.
Yeah, but this is lovely because this is, you know, it can be me and Em, or we can have 30 people.
Or 30
here.
people in here. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I think what really helps is the panelling.
Yeah.
I mean, the panelling just gives it that absolutely, you're cocooned in such a cosy room. But it's still got a great elegance to it as well.
Of course, and look, you've got just the lovely sort of archways here and the history around. So let's go back, if we can, to kind of the beginning, and the beginning of when the two of you first took over the running of Carlton Towers.
So we first moved up here in
1991.
November 91.
Right.
No one had really lived here since the 70s. My grandparents died in the early 70s, 71, 72.
But it had been open to the public.
It had been open to the public, but no one had really lived here.
No.
And I remember at that time, you know, my father inherited it because he was the eldest son. My father would love to have moved up here, but by then we grew up in a place near Henley-on-Thames, so my mother didn't want to move everyone up here. It was just sort of too impractical. Yep. So there were questions like, you know, what do we do with Carlton? Does a hotel want it? No. Does a police college want it? No. Does the council want it? No. It was a bit touch and go. So basically we sort of didn't quite dust sheet it up, but we started doing a few little guided tours. But it was mainly not lived in.
Okay.
We'd come up for high days and holidays, but it wasn't lived until we moved up in 91.
And you both made that decision.
We both made that decision. But more importantly, if my grandparents had died in the 30s or the 50s, after the wars, I think there's a strong possibility that Carlton could have been pulled down.
Yeah, that's right. 100%.
It was only by the 70s when it was listed that you couldn't do it. But yeah, no, because it's a bit of a amazing house. It's eccentric. Yeah. It's incredible. But
it's also a bit of a white elephant.
Now it's come into its own because we're living here. But
And let's just touch on that point, because I think it's really important to touch on that, because of course after the First and Second World Wars, so many of these beautiful heritage houses in Britain were pulled down because they would come back. The families would come back after the war, after the houses were requisitioned and they were in such a state, or the property tax,
or the owner had been killed in the war.
Yep. So that is extraordinary to think about. You're right that this probably could have been one of the casualties.
Totally, because
I think it could have been.
Ironically, Gerald's grandmother married someone called Lord Howard of Glossop. That's the Fitzalan Howard strain that's coming in here. Anyway, she insisted, it's a bit of another tale, but she insisted, Mona Beaumont insisted that he come and live with her at Carlton Towers. And he did, and Glossop Hall was pulled down.
So he lived in a place called Glossop Hall,
very,
just outside Manchester.
very dour stately home.
And that was
sort of probably for the best.
And that eventually was pulled down.
Wow.
Yeah.
But she said, nope, stamped her little feet, said, I'm not living there.
Right.
You coming here.
He was thrilled. He had a rather sad upbringing. So he was thrilled to come to Carlton.
And it was pulled down anyway.
And he adored Carlton.
Right.
He absolutely adored it.
So that was a casualty.
Yeah, it was. I mean, there were so many, over 1,000. So you're here, you make the decision and you think, right, we have this beautiful listed building that hasn't been properly lived in. Since the 70s.
So
we're going to live in it.
So we drove up on a November's evening.
Yeah, with a 1-month-old baby.
With Arthur, 1 month old, in the bassinet in the back seat of the Alfa Romeo, which of course broke down on the way up. So we're struggling with sort of headlights not working. Anyway, we arrive here. We'd come from a rather lovely little mews house in Chelsea in London.
Right.
And we arrived here and we thought,
what have we done?
What the hell have we done?
Oh,
and of course no kitchen.
No lovely kitchen.
Right, yes.
No
and when we came in and Arthur was crying and it was raining, it was this and that. and Emma wanted to feed him, so she wanted to open his little
Remember
SMA carton.
Yeah.
SMA cartons of milk. So
Yeah.
Gerald, go and get me something to open it.
The
So
formula,
oh my God, it's like if I was a pair of Granny's rusty secretaires. So I opened it with that, and they went, "What do you think you're doing?" I was going,
And,
"Oh, for God's sake, what have we
it's
done?"
just ghastly. We're here, and there's some practically rats scuttling around, and it was just awful.
But
Awful.
we made a go of it, didn't we?
And you and
So
wow.
slowly,
So then you've got a 1 month old. You're here, and did you then both think together, okay, we're going to make this a family home, but we need to make it commercially viable as well?
Yes.
Correct.
What do
yeah.
we
But I don't think we were even thinking that at that stage, because
We were doing a few weddings. We were doing sort of 5, 6,
but very
10
sort of
weddings a year.
amateur,
Right.
and we weren't, because we weren't there. It would have been someone in the village, kind of vaguely doing
Right,
the wedding. You know,
right.
I mean, nothing,
So our main
rather
focus was to
basic.
try and make it into a home. Hence the kitchen.
Yes.
So there was the kitchen was way downstairs, which I might show you later. Kitchen, and just children's bedrooms, just sort of nice, cosy bedrooms, and putting in, heating. None of the bedrooms were heated.
Well, the children's bedrooms still aren't. I'm telling you that here and
They
now.
still aren't. That's a very good point. They still aren't. Actually.
They literally are
Yeah.
not.
No
Right.
wonder they don't come
Or
out very
actually, and the
much.
guest rooms aren't. There's no.
No, the guest rooms are.
No, they are. Oak hasn't. Oak
No, no.
and Little Blue have
No,
not
but
got
the
central
the
heating.
main, the main
No,
guest
but
rooms
our
are.
ones on our wing
Right,
there
right,
is no
right.
central heating.
Gosh.
I can tell you that here and now.
Right. You've
but
got your
yeah.
little.
We've got little fan
Yeah,
heaters.
yeah,
It's
fine.
absolutely fine.
Yeah,
You
they
know.
work. They work.
They work.
Yeah.
So that's your first priority, is to make it into a family home,
Yes.
and
Yes.
that takes time because it hadn't been lived in for
No.
over 20 years.
That took a bit of time, but yeah, I mean, you just
And we
need
only
a
had one,
kitchen.
but then,
you need
you know,
some
we-
focuses.
Yes,
You know,
yes.
kitchen sounds very grand. Nursery, children's bedrooms, job done.
Right. Okay.
So we did that, and
And two more little girls
Yeah, and
appeared,
then two
so
little-
we really did have
then we
to
had 2 more.
really
Yeah.
make it into a family home.
Yes. So you've done the family home, and then you think, right, now we've got to sort of up the wedding.
ante.
Yeah,
Yes,
so
yes,
the
yes.
business was sort of bubbling on in the background, but then
It wasn't bubbling.
it was simmering. It was coming to the boil. Anyway, then we started doing that, and I remember things like if we had sort of prospective wedding guests coming round, and they were going, "Oh, I like this," but anyway, we'd send the children on their tricycles, and they'd be running around, and the wedding guests go, "Oh, isn't this sweet? Oh, isn't
Yeah,
it
so
charming?"
cute,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
cute, yeah.
They were good little sort of selling points.
Yes, of course, because everybody.
Because they love a family home.
Yeah,
It's
it's
a
family
because
home.
they-
family home.
because the thing about
with
Carlton
real
is-
children.
Yeah.
It is
Yes.
quite. It's very grand from the outside, and actually some of the big rooms are quite grand. But actually, it's got a real family feeling.
Yeah.
And when people come and stay here, we very much want them to feel they're our guests, that it's their house for the weekend, that it's not some sort of grand thing, that it's a
No, it's a family
Yeah,
home.
you know,
I mean,
it's
it's
a
people
comfortable
who come
family
here,
home.
and we do have people from far-flung places. I mean,
Yeah.
not as often as we'd like, but I mean, we want them to say, look, you are coming into a proper family home. We live here.
Right.
We're cooking
Yes.
lunch
Yeah.
next door.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
You know,
You
and
just
I'm
made me my
hoovering
coffee.
in
There you
here.
go.
and,
Yes, yes.
and it's not only we don't have tellies in the bedrooms. We don't
We
have
don't want
mini
them.
bars.
No.
It's you are our guests, and it's a proper old-fashioned
Exactly.
family guest experience.
Yeah.
I mean, at the point of labouring it, it's when you come here, it's a house party.
Fantastic.
I'd love it to feel like it's a house party.
It's
So I
a-
think we've achieved that.
It's a Downton Abbey house party.
Yeah, and actually, and we've stuck to our guns about the TVs in the rooms. We just,
Oh, I
if
think
anyone
it's the
wants
right
to
thing.
watch something,
No,
No.
because
They've
also
got
we
iPads.
just
You've got your iPads or your
and
phones.
people would just sit in their rooms watching TV. No, we want
Come
people
up.
to come down, come and congregate, sit
Because
around
this
by the
house
fire,
wants that
meet
energy.
everyone, chat to
yeah,
everyone. Yeah,
it really,
wants
does,
that
it really
energy.
wants
Yeah.
that energy. You're so right.
Yeah.
So this is 91. You've been here since 91. But you've also taken Carlton Towers and really put it on the map. You have a lot of weddings that happen here. What is 55 to 60 weddings a year. You've got big events. You have house parties, and is that something new that you've ventured into? People coming to actually get
Yes.
that Downton Abbey
Yes,
experience.
we are very much. We
Correct.
call them stately stays, and people will very much do that. I know. I mean,
Stately
someone else
stays,
came up with that idea. and it's a
fantastic.
Stately stays, and what they'll do is it can be an individual. It can be but we've got to justify it. I mean, at least
Yeah.
sort of 12 couples have to all do it. Whether they're all friends of each other, we don't mind.
Right.
But they've got to justify because obviously it's the staff and the all.
But
all
it
of
does
that.
work very
But-
well. If it is like we've just had my brother-in-law's 70th
Right.
here, and they had 38 people, And it just
including
was a really
few Americans, actually.
Including a few Americans.
Yeah.
And actually, it was just a really lovely. It was very interesting for us to see it from the inside.
Because we don't attend the weddings,
yes,
obviously,
of course,
you know.
of course.
So to see it as guests, and I have to say, we did it bloody well.
Yeah.
We really did.
The difference we did, which again we quite like to adopt this idea, we had one of the dinners in our private dining room, and it was the sort of coziness before the grandeur of the Venetian drawing room, and it really worked.
Yeah,
It was
'cause
lovely.
then you
Drinks
get the
and
contrast
hair,
of the
and
two. And
and I think people quite like this
Yeah.
sort of different location for their various.
So we had
meals.
38 people in here for drinks.
Yeah.
fantastic! How fun! And also, you know, it, as I was saying earlier, it gives energy to the house, but
Yeah.
it also makes sure that other people can enjoy what you've been enjoying, I've been enjoying, our ancestors have been enjoying. You know,
True.
we've sort of taken down, ripped down those invisible walls where these houses were fortresses.
Green baize doors.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly. And
yes.
saying, no, come in and experience, you know, the history, the interiors.
What
the
our ancestors
exteriors.
did, as you so rightly say.
And to
Yeah.
have just a little
Yeah.
bit of fun. So, and of course, Americans, we love this. You know, we love the.
Well, you're part of it now.
Well, yeah, I'm part of it, and which is so exciting. And
Yes.
on the one hand, but we know that it is a lot of hard work.
Yeah.
Let's not. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not here to play a violin. It's that
No,
wonderful
no.
phrase of being in a gilded cage. But to see the visitors come far and wide, and just their jaw drops when they walk in is one thing when they're touring it, but to have them stay here and experience.
Yes.
So actually, and we
Quite
really,
another.
we
Yes.
genuinely love that. You know, we
Yeah.
say that even if we won the lottery, we would still
Want to hear stuff
use
happening in
the
those rooms there.
big
you
rooms.
know.
Yeah.
Because we could never use them; they're just too big.
Yep.
And actually, having a wedding or a party or just people enjoying the house is
Yeah.
just really, it's really important to
Oh,
us.
it's
isn't it?
so important. And there, yes, of course, there's going to be wear and tear. We all know
Yeah.
these beautiful bits of furniture that were made, but then you can't just keep everything all boxed up.
No,
They
you
can't
can't.
afford to.
And there's worse wear and tear if you don't use it. You know, as soon as you
Yes.
stop using a house, it just goes. The
knows.
soul
It-
goes,
yeah.
and the fabric goes, and it's
Exactly.
It's odd that houses need to be used.
They need to be lived in. That's why they were
Don't they, Ronnie?
they're built. And we're just living in them in a different way, and I think in a much more comfortable way than our ancestors
But
did.
what I do think people don't quite realise is that, just as you said earlier on about living in a gilded cage, it's you know, it's not perfection. It's actually, you know, people go, oh, well, you don't have to worry. Well, of course you do.
It's
You're trying to
just-
keep this place, this absolute living history alive.
Yeah, and
it's bloody hard work.
It is hard work, and I will preface that with saying, is because these houses, and you mentioned it earlier in the 70s when this became listed, they are listed for a reason, so that they, you know, government bodies do come and view our listed houses
and protect us,
but to make sure that the stonework is being looked after, that the roof is, and that falls on us as the custodians and homeowners when those government bodies come, because we're listed, and say, do you know what, you need to look at that.
Could you give us some money, please?
Right.
So we're,
Exactly.
so we're Grade 1 listed here.
Yep.
And we've literally just had the whole house under scaffolding.
Right.
To redo all the stonework and this and that. We didn't get any funding because we're not open to the public and we're not a charity. But you know, we run it as a business.
But and going back to your point of, you know, Carlton being under scaffolding because of the stonework that you had to do, and mentioning that, of course, that's not, you know, we don't have, as listed houses, because we're Grade 1 listed as well,
Yes.
we don't have access to the same grants that the National Trust has or English Heritage. We don't because
we're privately owned.
owned.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so therefore we, of course, like National Trust, have to open up our houses to the public, but we still don't have access to those grants. And there's, you know, that's something that I think is, I hope that the government bodies will look at.
I agree.
In future, because we do get the wear and tear.
Well, that's
same
the
amounts.
historic houses, isn't it? Is sort of trying to look into
that's
that.
What,
that's
and
the
exactly
lobbying
right.
group.
And that's the
effectively.
lobbying group. And luckily we are all a part of Historic Houses, the association who does do that lobbying for us.
Correct,
And trying to get us more
So I do think,
grants, access to grants. So I also want to just move on to what you both are doing now, because of course as I drove in, I noticed in that historic walled garden, not a typical walled garden, but some vineyards.
It is a vineyard.
Okay, yeah, we have a little
Yes.
vineyard.
Some vines, I should say.
Yeah.
Notice some
vines.
vines.
Some
Some
vines.
vines
In a
in a vineyard, yeah.
Original?
No.
Clever? What? I've
Oh,
never
I see
seen
what you
this
mean. It
before.
wasn't original, but I mean, that was a beautiful walled garden, which when
So
there were
in Granny's
servants.
day, it was a wall garden with
Right.
vegetables in it.
Okay.
It was a
They
kitchen
sort of-
garden.
And they sort of grew
And
peaches
they grew peaches
exotic fruits.
and
Yeah, what the
and
Victorians
green,
did.
and probably proper old-fashioned greenhouses, the likes of which we all
which
can
I can
remember.
remember.
Can you?
And
Okay,
weirdly,
yeah.
actually, if you look back at the old horticultural journals in the early 1800s, in 1826, there's a letter from someone saying that Mr. John Seymour, the head gardener at Carlton Hall, as it was then called, has invented a new way of espaliering and pruning fruit trees. And the modern way of fanning them out was invented here, weirdly,
And you've probably got espaliered,
which is amazing.
espaliered stuff. I'm
We've
sure
got
you
some,
have.
yeah.
Unbeknownst to
So
us, really
that's
just
that's
discovered
quite sort
this.
of that's yeah. I mean, I've got a.
I'm rather chuffed about that.
Fascinating,
But
yes.
but the reason it's a wall. Okay, so it was a wall garden.
Yes.
Granny had it, and I remember it well. Then when Granny died, we let it to a market gardener because obviously we couldn't. I mean,
Right.
Granny had a sort of a stall in Goole Market that the gardener would take all the vegetables.
Oh, the produce.
But I mean, it was just.
It was all very scruffy. And
Right,
It was
yeah,
all
yeah.
bits,
Yeah, it was
So
very
anyway, so we then got this market garden in. That was fine for a bit. Then actually we got rid of him, and then actually it was just grassed over for many years. And then we put some pigs in it. We started having pigs. Then now pigs are in the woods, but still they're in the wall garden. And I remember we went on an incredibly grand Royal Horticultural Society sponsored.
What to do with your wall garden?
Wall garden
Right.
seminar
That's a first world problem.
Right.
at a capability brown design garden and all that. And it was Emma and I were thinking, oh my God, this is a bit sort of nerve wracking.
Right.
And sort of people came up and said,
So out of our depth.
So out of it. People sort of come and say, oh, Carlton Towers, do you have hibiscus comiscus in your wall garden?
Yeah,
We
and
go,
all that.
no, we've got
No,
pigs.
good grief,
And they go,
yeah.
We actually got
Agnes,
pigs
they've
in
got
our
pigs. Don't talk to them. They've got
Yeah.
pigs in their wall garden. Anyway, there was a guy there who was a South African winemaker.
A sort of dude, real dude.
And he'd bought a wall garden in Dorset because he said they've got a microclimate. So I
We
thought,
do.
Wow.
Do
So-
you
We're
endorse
endorsing.
it?
We
Yeah.
have a microclimate.
Yeah, well, no,
Yeah,
but
you might well know
but-
him.
No, but wall gardens have a microclimate.
Ah, I see.
Yeah,
Okay,
wall
okay.
gardens have a microclimate.
But so he's got a
So I
microclimate
got
within a
back-
microclimate, hasn't he?
So I got back here, and I got a JCB digger in, dug 3 trenches to see the soil structure.
Right.
So it goes down from topsoil down to sand and gravel. So drainage is very good. Drainage
Right.
is very important for a vineyard. And then went to the sadly defunct electrical store called what's it called? What's that electrical school called? Anyway,
Curry's.
no, the lovely one. What's it called? The
Why is
one
this
that-
relevant?
Because I bought 2 little weather stations.
Oh, right.
One
okay.
for inside and one for outside.
Anyway, never
and
mind
so
about
I've got
the
a
place.
microclimate.
Okay.
So I thought this could be a really good place to plant a vineyard.
And anyway, and of course,
So-
the pigs had ruffled up all the thing and got
Yeah,
all
yeah,
the
they were
nutrients all
roodling it,
going-
yep.
roodling away. So that was all great. And so we thought, right, and we
So you did it.
purchased how many? 2,000 vines.
So we
half
got-
of which are Chardonnay and half of which are Pinot Noir. Only ever going to make sparkling wine because that's all a climate could cope with. But it is a genuine.
Maplins.
Maplins. Oh, Maplins.
The
There you go,
electrical
there you go.
store.
Yeah, yeah, the
Maplins.
electrical store. There you go.
So it's genuine is a microclimate in there. The walls are slightly sloping, aren't they? Which
Yeah,
obviously
we'll show them
attracts
later.
more
It's
sunlight.
Yes,
a
I'm
genuinely old wall
excited.
garden.
Yes.
So,
So
but
it's got-
clever to do English sparkling wine because they're saying that. Because
Oh, the French are having to buy English vineyards
they're
now.
terrified because we're
So
the new
down south-
champagne.
And well, all their, all around there.
Down
in,
south on the South Downs, it's
Yeah.
the same strata of rock that you have in Reims.
Right.
So it comes up through the Paris Basin.
And of course they're getting
under the
hotter and
channel,
hotter.
And then it's the South Downs. So, and with climate change, it's getting hotter and hotter.
They're
So
getting hotter
the
and hotter.
south is perfect for sparkling wine.
Right.
Not allowed to call it champagne. Up here, it's a bit more of a challenge.
Right.
But with a wall garden,
We've got that on our
good.
side.
That's a
that
good
makes
thing
it a
on
bit
our
more
side, yeah.
southy, if you know what
Yes,
I mean.
no,
with
of
it
course,
being a
of
book
course.
And
garden.
now in Yorkshire, there are sort of 10, 15, 20 vineyards.
incredible in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
Can I also say we planted all our vines ourselves? We didn't get some little
Absolutely.
funkies in.
Did
we
you?
did it. Well, we got a bit of help, but
yeah,
we were.
but 2,000.
We,
2,200.
we again, we were
Crikey.
very.
And I mean, we're out pruning. I mean, Emma, you prune.
You're not.
I do.
I'm gonna-
It's untrue. I do.
I'm going to taste some later, aren't I?
Yeah. Definitely.
You are.
So
no,
excited.
But,
no,
the, but,
you are
but,
amazing.
but a happy accident, okay, Julie, was that so we've now just realised our 22 vintage. So we're now commercially, well, we don't commercially sell it. We sell it to the brides and
Right, yeah.
on our kind of thing. It's a hint of pink, which it shouldn't be. But for some reason, that vintage took on the hue of the Pinot Noir, and we don't know why. Because Pinot Noir is a normal thing to make with Chardonnay, but they're never normally pink. People who want pink champagne have to do that properly.
Yeah.
But as a result,
No, I think we just when it was.
the
So when
macerate,
you
it's a happy accident. We love
yeah.
that.
Wow.
So the juice stayed on the skins for a bit, and that was
Okay.
pleasant. Because when you have rosé champagne, it's not because champagne is Pinot Noir, red grape, Pinot Meunier, red grape, Chardonnay, white grape. Champagne is always those three varieties. When you have red pink champagne, they add red wine to the juice
Yeah.
to give it the colour.
I
With
see.
us, I think our Pinot Noir just sort of bled out because we left the juice on the skins for a bit.
Okay.
Happy accident.
Yeah.
But it's lovely, isn't it?
And it might not be like that
next
It
year.
might not be.
But
Yeah.
our 2023 is purely white. But
There you go.
But that's quite a.
but I think maybe
quite
we might
nice
try,
little
maybe that
whimsical
might be our
thing,
little
you know?
trademark.
It's fun.
fun.
But anyway, can we just really big ourselves up here?
Yeah.
Because we then had a GBB's Great Britain wine.
Yes.
And in all this area. I mean, not just this area. How to go down to the Midlands and
Midlands and North.
Midlands and North.
You
Anyway,
won,
we had,
didn't you?
Well, what we did win, we had we had a big lunch up here. We hosted the lunch.
Right.
It goes around to all the vineyards, and it just happened to be us last month, and or beginning of this month. Anyway, so we had a lovely jolly lunch, a jolly talk, and and there were different categories: still
Yes, it
red,
was for
still
the
white,
awards.
sparkling.
And there were 80 wines to
Demi
try.
Brut, 82 wines. And then we, in the pink sparkling one, which is very nice, we won silver, which is lovely. No one won gold. But,
Wow.
really
More than
being
that.
big-headed here, we won the overall GB members thing over all the 82 grapes.
So it was the members, our peers,
We've
Yes.
never won
saying,
anything
"You
in
know
our
what?
lives.
We think Gerald Nemmers is the best of all our membership. Theirs is the best."
I mean,
And
So
you're
that
gonna
was
use
that was
that-
very
Oh, we
special.
You're
are
very
gonna
good. And market
milk
that. You've
it.
got to milk that.
We are going to milk it.
We are, but
And you're going to taste it later.
Yeah, yeah,
so you
I'm
said
so
you've got to be
excited.
absolutely honest, Julie.
Yeah, I will.
I don't want to. I think
No, I'm
because we have
joking.
such a small production, we're not trying to sell to Waitrose. We're not
not
gonna
gonna-
sell
we're
it
not
to
gonna
our
do
brides.
some Sainsbury's
But
or
no, I
anything
think
like
it's a
that,
nice
no.
story, but we won't put it on the bottle because the problem with all these award things, you get
You
a
then
gold,
don't get
you get a
one.
gold medal.
Right.
Next, you don't get a gold medal, and people go, "Oh, I thought you had a gold medal."
Well, that's
Right,
probably
right,
rubbish.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you'll find places like Knighton down south, they just don't enter any competitions anymore.
Right.
Because people expect a gold medal if you've got one.
I
so anyway,
see.
we want
Better
to be,
not.
we want to do it quietly.
But such a good accolade to. I mean,
Is what we will do
It's brilliant.
is because when I was so we planted it,
Mm-hmm.
and actually we didn't do it totally correctly. We didn't put stakes in. We trellised it. We didn't put stakes in for some reason. So these vines were just growing like mad.
Right.
And so you get sort of 5 tendrils coming up and going like mad. And I thought, oh, this is crazy. We've got to just either think it's a bad idea and pull it all up, or just get our heads around it. So we got our heads around it, and we were out there, 5:30 in the morning, staking them and cutting it down to one stem and all that, and it was all a nightmare. And I remember being out there one morning, and it was raining. I thought, oh, for God's sake. I looked up, and I could see my father looking down, going, "Gerald, a vineyard in the wall garden. Bloody hell, well done you, lad. Well done you."
Because he loved Carlton.
he
Because he was
loved
brought up
Carlton.
here. He
And he
loved
was
Carlton.
obsessed
And
with
there's a
Carlton.
plaque in the local Catholic church that said Miles Francis Stapleton Fitzalan Howard. Carlton
Duke
was
of Norfolk.
his home.
So when we have
I know he just
great
loved, he
vintage,
would love to have lived here.
I'm
till he
gonna
died.
call it Duke Miles after my
We
father.
have a very
Oh,
fine.
So
wonderful.
like a Dom Perignon
Yep,
for the
yep.
champagne. So
I
Duke Miles is going to be when it's
have
going to
one
be a good,
sort of yes, it's a
in
special.
memory of Dad.
It was so funny that you.
That
so
is a lovely
sweet, that.
tribute. That is lovely.
he'll be
And he
very
would have
proud.
completely been
Yeah.
blown away by this.
How wonderful.
And I know.
Gosh, it's brilliant.